Så bare tælle ind over den. Og det har jeg sagt også, fordi hvis der er spørgsmål fra publikum, så bliver det også den her, de skal bruge. Så.
Ja.
Hvis du vil have den slukket, så kan du gøre det hernede.
Ja.
Det er lige meget, fordi jeg sidder med fingrene på knappen dernede.
Hi, Julian Thomas.
Hi, good morning, good to meet you.
Good to meet you.
So yeah, so I'm stepping in. So the other moderator basically got stuck in a flight stranded visiting.
Yeah,
that's what I mentioned to the guys. It was almost the same for me yesterday.
So it's been a bit of a ride. So, but anyway, I'm actually ex-Danfoss, now work for VDOX, but I've also worked for the past 15 years.
How long have you been in
Danfoss, I was here almost 6 years on it.
You was in PA?
Yeah, I was in PA.
Okay.
Back in the day, I was in heating solutions, and then I left for a few years.
You was in heating solutions?
Yeah, back in the day. And then I
So
left.
you know some then of the business,
Yeah. So that's also why I
she's
should
been
step
in
in
as well
here.
of domestic solutions.
So no, but that's why I can step in here. So I did that for a few years, and I stepped out, and then I was in group. But I'm also working a lot in the European alliances and trade organizations on this.
And how long have you been in Linux?
Only since January.
Okay, that's really new.
Yeah.
And you're based out of Copenhagen?
No, out of Brussels. So most of my expertise and experience is still controls and backs, which is why it makes sense for me to step in. So I know your EU colleagues as well.
I don't know if this is a good comment or not.
I work with her in Renovate Europe and Eurowaste and something.
Oh, she's great. I mean, I tell you, she's just doing marvelous things for us.
And I also know her predecessors.
Okay, that I don't, because
so that was why at short notice I was able to step in here, because I actually have most of my experience from that part. And then I think there's also something nice and symbolic about sort of saying, hey, actually it's about sort of integrated solutions, right?
Yeah.
Så.
Morning, everyone. Please take a seat, panelists, so we can get started. We've only got 45 minutes, and we've got a big topic to cover here. So thank you very much for being with us today. Yeah, we can share a table, that's fine, Frank. We are many people here, and that's because it's a really exciting topic. And of course, those of us in this room know that buildings really matter. But to those out there, we know that buildings make up over a third of our CO2 emissions. And that also means that for us to decarbonize our society, but also to unleash a host of other benefits, tackling the building stock is absolutely essential. And that's also why at this conference we've got not one, but two sessions on buildings. We've got this first one here on building automation and controls and decarbonizing the building stock. And then we've got a second session in the same room, so you can stay if you want to, that is focusing on the health and well-being and the more sort of holistic approach to buildings. So that's really exciting. Thank you for being with us. Thank you to our panel. We've got 5 panelists, so we'd better get started to optimize the time they've got for talking about their solutions. Now, if some of you have the printed program, you might be thinking, she doesn't look like a man with an Italian-sounding name. And that is correct. We've had to change the moderator last minute because of a flight strike in Italy. But I'm very happy to be with you today. My name is Julie Kjestrup. And I work in an entirely different part of the building now. I work for Velux, but I'm here today because I've also for many, many years been involved in the trade associations and alliances on energy efficiency in buildings from an EU perspective, and I'm currently the vice chair, so the company representative for Renovate Europe, and that's a political communications campaign focusing on, as it suggests, the renovation of the building stock in Europe with members across 18 member states, both national associations, but also direct corporate members, some of which are on this stage today. So I hope I'll be able to shepherd you all through this discussion. So, but without further ado, let's move to our panelists. And Frank, you're first in line. I mean, tell us who you are, who you represent, and also we were talking earlier about sort of, we've got this hashtag going around that says YEE, and while it's short and snappy, I'm also thinking, shouldn't we be beyond the why and talk about the how and how quickly and in which way? And Frank, what have you got to say to that?
Yeah, so I'm Frank Grundholm. I work as responsible for global sales towards building industry, district energy, and as well as tunnel ventilation, dewatering of tunnels. Very much focused on energy efficiency now for almost 30 years, started in 95, working with energy efficiency in buildings. And variable speed on the pumps and fans and compressors that we have in our buildings is one of the easiest ways to save a lot of energy in our buildings. And still today, more than 25 years ago, starting that, I still see a lot of motors that are not controlled in our buildings. So, I mean, we're talking about a potential saving of 30–40% in a building on the energy consumption. And the HVAC systems, the heating, ventilation, air conditioning systems, use about 40% of the building energy. So that's where my focus still is today, still lecturing about why should we put variable speed on. Yes, it's great that we use an i5 motor as well, but we shouldn't forget to also apply variable speed because that's where the biggest chunk of energy savings opportunity is. And for the same reason, I'm also on the board of Eurovent Association, working with the industry players on developing the solutions, supporting legislation, working with eco-design requirements so that we can really push this renovation of our building mass and really get the energy usage reduced or energy efficiency increase. But my focus is more on the energy usage than the energy efficiency, because that's where I think we have the highest energy efficiency potential.
Thank you very much, Frank. And next in line, we've got Henning from Bitzer Electronics. And Henning, so, I mean, we're just hearing... Oh, sorry, you've swapped? It's very confusing. I mean, 5 men in similar looking suits. Now we have Henning next in line, and thank you for that. So we're just hearing here, I mean, great products, big saving, work well, documented. I mean, what do we need to see more uptake? What's hindering us?
Yeah, thanks. My name is Henning Christensen. I'm coming from Bitzer, a manufacturer of compressors and control systems. So, and I think one of the things that we need to work on, as also mentioned earlier this morning, is to spread the knowledge, and also that it is not magic. There's a lot of things we can do today with the existing technology, like optimizing cooling systems for supermarket, for example. There's a lot that can be optimized with intelligent control, so demand control. Frank mentioned put variable speed on the compressor. That saves a lot of energy. But also the knowledge that it is actually a good business case. So it's not that you need to throw out money to save energy. So it is a good business case. All the cases that we have payback times that are less than 4 years. So I think that is the...
I mean, we're here at the DI Energy Efficient Solutions Summit, so I think this point about this being a good business case is very important, and maybe one that we're not good enough in telling as an industry. And maybe our next speaker, who now should be Niels, from Grundfos, maybe you can speak to that. I mean, do we have some more sort of concrete numbers in terms of what could be saved, or a good use study from your end?
Yes, my name is Niels Bistrup. I'm from Grundfos Pumps, and I have been working with energy efficiency of pumps for 30 years, from research to development, and today I'm the chief specialist in regulatory and technical affairs. So for the last 15, 20 years, that I've actually been focused on that. And especially, as we heard now, there's big savings. Why don't they use the variable speed on pumps? And one reason is first cost, and therefore we still have a lot to do. A lot of savings can be actually still get these savings in the right way. And I was involved very much involved in the small end, also with pumps going into commercial buildings, but especially to domestic buildings for circulators, where I was heavily involved in getting legislation in Europe via the Eco-Design Directive. And actually now, after a long stretch, this was in 2013, we had this implemented, but now after a long stretch, we are in the final stage of the legal process for doing the same for actually the pumps going into commercial buildings. And we hope actually this will be adopted in primo next year. So that's very good news. That means actually that for certain pump types and sizes, it will be mandatory to have variable speed drive on the pumps. And not only that, it also had to meet a certain energy efficiency. So we hope that will actually be adopted here in a half year time.
Excellent. Thank you so much for that. Our next speaker is Stefan. And Stefan, your title here is President of Global Sales. So maybe you can give us more of the sort of market perspective on this. What are you seeing from your customers? Can you see this sort of increased push for these technologies?
Yeah, and maybe, if you're okay, Julie, I just would like to make a quick step back. So I'm Stefan. I'm heading the sales, the global sales for the climate solution segment in Danfoss. Similar experience as you guys, because we are more or less in the industry for about 30 years, so same generation, I believe, lots of experience here. And Julie, just to set a little bit the scene here, what are we talking about today? Just for all of you guys, and thank you for being here today. I mean, you are many of you in that session, so that's cool to see that. What are we talking about? Because when we talk about buildings, commercial buildings, special purpose building, data centers, supermarkets, whatever, there are basically 3 elements that we should be looking at if we want to really achieve energy saving. The first one is the one that we are not looking at here. This is the envelope. This is the way the building is designed. So here, super nice building. I don't believe this is a super efficient building, the way it's designed, to be honest. Let's see this afternoon. Let's see the temperature, but let's see. Then the other 2 things, this is where we come into play here. This is the energy generation, how we produce the energy, the heat, or how do we cool. So there's a lot of things also from a control perspective to do. And then the third element, it is how do we distribute the heat, how do we control. And this is back to what Frank explained, and this is exactly this thing. So I think today this is where we should be spending time, a little bit less on energy generation and more on controls. And you guys, you started to mention that. There are some super key elements here in terms of speed, readiness, technology readiness, and return on the investment. And I believe that's what we will be talking about. Putting things into perspective, just in front of us here, we have the Alsic Hotel. I don't know who have been staying there. Yeah, I hope it has been a comfortable experience. Super, I have not paid this gentleman, to be clear. So very cool. And this is really all the technology in action into that building. Controls, I believe you guys, you may have some of your products into that building. And this is really, we have achieved 80% CO2 footprint reduction, 80%. So we can talk later about what we have done. And I'm very happy here today. We have a CTO of a company who has designed the energy generation of that building, 1 megawatt chiller. So yeah, we have achieved a lot. And controls here plays an absolute key role.
Thank you so much, and thank you also for very...
sorry for turning a little bit around your question.
That is absolutely no problem. I think you gave a very tangible example that most of us also had the pleasure of experiencing, and that's exactly the sort of solutions we'd like to talk about in this forum as well. So I'll ask you guys, Thomas from Johnson Controls, and from your end, where do you see the market going, and what sort of solutions or case studies have you brought with you today?
Yeah, so good morning, everyone. As said, I'm Thomas Brano. I run the European, Latin America, and Middle East and Africa region for Johnson Controls. And there's a lot been said, so I'd like to tie into a few things, but maybe later. So especially all the technologies that you've been talking about and the need to kind of collect data from them and to digitalize the building and to understand what, where we are. But first, let me just answer the question in my short intro about what's possible, a little bit to what you said, Stefan. So we were, just an example, we had been partnering with Powerhouse in Brattåkra in Trondheim to develop a very innovative, pioneering energy efficiency building. And we did that a couple of years ago. And there's a lot of learnings from that. And you might have heard about this case. I mean, the targets for that building was to first maximize the renewable energy that the building itself can produce. Number two, minimize the energy consumption of the building itself, and number three, increase the experience of the tenants and of the public in the building. And the results there were pretty stunning, I think, that in compared to a new building in the same area, we reduced the energy consumption by 80%, so similar measures as you said, and the building itself produces 2x in average the energy it consumes itself. And there was a lot of learnings from that project, especially around the technologies, as this gentleman has said, and what's needed to do when it comes to collect the data to be able to optimize later on.
Thank you. And you said a couple of interesting words I thought was like partnering and learning and solutions, right? Because I think what we've talked about now for 3 days is this notion that, yes, Denmark might be responsible for 0.1% of global emissions, but by working together we can achieve change. And that, of course, is also very much the case for your technologies here today. And Frank, we were talking just before, I mean, I know that in your company, you also have an internal project to decarbonize, where you're looking at using solutions for yourself that can then also maybe be applied with customers later. Do you want to tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, so what we did, Julie, was we were looking at, we decided we wanted to reduce the carbon emissions of ABB, and then we said, well, one of the carbon footprints that we do have is our own facilities. So we started a program we called Mission to Zero, which was just an internal program to really look at how do we decarbonize our building mass, our factories, our offices, and really bring our technologies into the play for that. Then over time, as that developed, we then found out, well, actually, there's a lot of interest in this from the outside as well, because we, of course, made a press release when we did the first project in Lüdenscheid, which is where the Busch-Jaeger factory is, which is now net zero. We have 3 buildings now that have gone through this and are net zero today. So we've now started working with external partners on piloting also for the external part, where we set up a program and then we invite energy auditors from external, we invite third parties into using that framework that we've built, and then also adding components from other companies that we work with in that mix to make sure we have a full solution really for decarbonizing buildings. So, yeah.
Excellent. Does anybody else want to come in on this point? Yes, Stefan.
Yeah, more or less similar concept as what Frank just mentioned, and then here Danfoss is operating their headquarters here in Aalborg. This is going to be fully CO2 neutral this year. So when you think about several thousand of people, plus manufacturing, plus R&D, plus labs, which are pulling a lot of electricity, so being fully carbon neutral, so this is really an achievement. And the only thing that we're doing, and this is, I think, something that we need to be very clear with everyone, when we talk about controls, we use words like electronics, variable speed, pumps, and so on and so forth. This is easy technologies.
Yes.
The readiness is there. There are a super good return of investment. We are not talking about developing completely new unknown technologies. I mean, Monica mentioned something during the panel discussion, which is super key. And then I know we have people here who are looking at innovations. So don't quote me on this one, but we don't talk about innovation here. We talk about adoption, about what is already out there. And there's a lot out there. And what have we done in our headquarters? We have just took our own medicine. And a huge headquarter, fully carbon neutral by the end of this year, just taking our own medicine, not the fancy whatever, not ready to be put in the market products. All what is already available. And I think that's one of our tasks here. It is everyone to understand that this is already out there. This is not sophisticated. There are some challenges because the opportunities are massive, but there are also some super big challenges. And I think we can talk about that. But all what we say, all what we do is already ready to be applied, I think, for all these companies. And I think that's super, super critical to get it.
There's some nodding going on here. Yes?
Yeah, I would like to comment on that as well. I think both the example from Frank and from Stefan, they have used existing technology, but it's the knowledge about how to connect the systems and how to control them together. I think that are one of the key framework or obstacles to speed up this, because these gentlemen and the companies where they're coming from have a huge knowledge about how to do it. So we have to spread that and to say it is not magic. It can be done with existing technology, but the system has to talk together and not thinking about a cooling system and a heating system, but combine these systems so that the excess heat that the cooling system is generating, that we reuse the energy and either for the heating of the building or for the district. But the different sectors or the different business areas has to work together.
Thank you. And Thomas on this?
Yeah, I just want to tie what Henning has been saying. So we are, building solutions company. We have many different portfolios like HVAC, so heating, cooling, security, video access, fire, etc. And we saw exactly that problem as you were talking about, that the systems were reasonably standalone and had been in the past. So we took upon a journey to create a platform which we call OpenBlue to be able to do what you said, and it's about collecting the data. And to be honest, like every digitalization effort, it was kind of slow to take off in the beginning. I've been part of a journey in Volvo and water, etc., and it was slow. I think, and the same was in building, and why is that? Many factors, I'm thinking we can talk about that. But I think that there are a few catalysts now which we see in the market when we speak to our customers in different verticals that is speeding up the digitalization of buildings, which I think is very positive. I just want to say three things very quickly. The first thing is, smart buildings, and we can talk about smart buildings, sounds fancy, etc. But many of our clients really want to utilize technology today to enhance the user experience, to be able to increase the rents they get from the building, number one, and also to increase the value of their assets. So that is one driver to digitalize and getting the data from the different subsystems. The second driver I would mention is kind of back to office movement, which is health and safety of the people in the building. So that would be indoor air quality, contact tracing, touchless access, etc. to buildings. That's also driving the digitalization need. And the third one, I think, is the biggest one, probably talking about here today, is the decarbonization of the buildings, where every CEO has pledged a net zero target. Buildings 40% of in average of their carbon emission. No one exactly knows how to do it, but they know that they got to attack the buildings, and that is a big driver for the digitalization of the building and all the benefits that's going to give in connecting the different subsystems, I would say.
Excellent, thank you. I think Nils wants to come in this, and then also, if anybody has questions in the audience, then please raise your hands, and then You'll get to speak in a second.
Yeah, as I said, the first cost is still an issue, and that's why variable speed or what we also call extended product, that means pumps with motors, VFD and controls are not as sold as a unit. But that is what I said, the legislation will help us. But the main thing there, and we saw that for other product groups, when you have overcome that, maybe via legislation, then you have spent the money. You have an intelligent pump already, you have the electronics, so you have an enabler for all the digitalization, cloud solution, more intelligent ways, good balancing of the system. All these things are a very small step compared to actually the first step to get the VSD on and intelligent control. So that will also be an enabler for the more energy solution also on building level and pump system level also.
Thank you. Stefan, I see you're marking, but also I saw we had a question from the audience. So I think I'm also in charge of running around with the microphone. Tell us who you are and what your question is.
If I can remember. Michael Linthrop from CMI. If I were an investor or a customer building owner, could I then get the question to you, or an answer for that question, that you can interact between all your products? So I, as a customer on that building, can now have one operating system that then can connect all of your beauties that you guys have. And the second, and the second question is, who is going to finance all this? Thank you.
Ooh, it's a good and very relevant question, though, and it comes back to the digitalization we talked about before. So, Stefan, I think you're first for your hand.
I'm going to just start a little bit to answer, and then the gentleman will follow up. Here we need to be very careful. When we talk about controls, optimizing your building, your operations, we start thinking immediately building automation systems, which are absolutely great, digitalization, and I think we need to have a theme here on digitalization because this is very critical. But there's a lot of other ways to start first, because your building is an ecosystem. If you put a building management system and just that, and not distributing properly the energy, not having the proper balancing of the energy into your building, then you're going to miss a lot of energy. So the first steps start with the basics, with the energy generations, properly balancing your building from a heat distribution standpoint. And this is starting with mechanical products. No need to communicate. And then you move to next step, which is with electronic products, pumps, controllers, the complete building management system and drives. These guys, they will answer. And then the next final step, it is the digitalization. And yes, if these guys are not talking to each other, your question is absolutely relevant. It's not going to work. You're not going to get the efficiency. I'll let you guys reply, and then we have a financing topic, which is...
I was going to say, you've left the tricky part of the question to the others.
Yeah, I took the easiest part, so...
That's what you get for being first. Nils, you look like you have something to say.
Yeah, I think the time for proprietary systems for communication is gone. It's a more open system, so that's the direction things are going. More open communication, more open protocol, cloud solution, and you have to be open to actually be in the game. So yeah, I hope that answers it. Yeah.
Frank?
Yeah, so I fully understand the question, and I don't think there is a good answer across the board right now, simply because we're from 5 different companies. I guarantee we have 5 different cloud solutions for digitalization. So what we're missing is standardized interfaces between all these different cloud solutions, because every manufacturer, with any respect for themselves, have their own IoT cloud solution. And that's part of the challenge. In terms of automating the building, there's nothing new about automating the building. We've had building management systems for many, many years. It was there already when I started in '95. I mean, ABB makes them, Johnson makes them, no big deal there. But a scary part of it is how it's being used. It's actually scary, because there was a survey from NYSERDA that they did on New York State buildings, and that showed that post-COVID energy consumption of the buildings and during COVID energy consumption of the buildings, the occupancy was down 70% in the buildings. guess what? Energy consumption dropped 10% across the board, across New York State in commercial buildings. Why? Because energy usage, the lighting, the ventilation didn't follow occupancy. It followed agreements between the tenant and the property owner of the comfort levels that were supposed to be maintained during working hours. Crazy.
And so what do we do about that? Because here we're then talking about, you know, as you say, we're talking about sort of an agreement and a deal and a calculation that's been made, rather than actually using, you know, what automation and control can do, which is to measure and adjust accordingly.
But that goes right back to Nils's point that we need legislation to really push that these kinds of agreements of fixed levels, they can't happen because it destroys the potential energy reductions that we could have. And we need we need to have the AI that can actually follow the use of the building, because the tenants also don't have any value of having light in the office if there's nobody there. But the property owner is obligated. So
let's talk a little bit about legislation, because we start off saying this is a solution summit. We're here to talk about solutions. We have solutions.
There's a question that
There's
we have
another
not
question.
answered.
The financing.
The
yeah.
financing part we have not
Oh, the
answered.
financing. Yes, sorry.
Yeah.
Do you want to take that first, and I'll go back?
Yeah, I can start on this one. I believe this is the question number one. I mean, this is not the technology. I mean, yes, we have to improve some of the communication, right? But the technology is there. So what do we do to really increase the adoption? I mean, super basic numbers. And I just mentioned about properly distributing the heat in a building with valves. This is basics. This is saving quite a lot of energy. This is not with a lot of investment. In Germany, 85 of the new buildings, they don't have proper balancing to distribute the heat in the building. How can it be? And that's back to your question. And that's back to the panel discussion of this morning. We do have these very big directives. And here, in our case, to simplify, we have the EPBD, which is defining the net zero for targets for buildings. But this is not put into motion. So when it starts at the EU level, and when this is cascaded down into the countries, into the cities, we need to put these things in motion. And financing is one of the key elements, for which we don't have super good solutions for now.
I was exactly thinking about the CapEx versus
Yeah. And the other thing, it is also our duty here to create the transparency about the trade-off between CapEx and OpEx, because we know this by heart. What are the solutions for you if you want to spend more on OpEx than on CapEx, or the opposite? There's a lot of solutions out there, but this is also one of the education that we need to do to create the transparency, as what they mentioned into the panel this morning. But the cascading, putting directives into motions, it is the number one element, and financing is a big portion of that. Yeah, good question.
We've got Thomas and then Nils wanting to come in this as well.
Just very short, as said, I think every one of us would say, yes, we can integrate everything, but the question is what to, and we do. I mean, we are automating the FIFA stadiums right now, or everything from the access control to the temper of the ice cream machine, but why? Yeah, and what you know, because someone wants to have the best, but where is the return? And I think that's where we should have a discussion. But on financing, I fully agree with you, Stefan, here, and you probably with the backdrop of asking the question. That is a major inhibitor for the speed of what we are doing right now. So what we are trying to do, and we're far from there, we're doing two things. First, we put a financing program in place so that it can be moved from CapEx to OpEx by the customer. But then the customer comes back to say, because this is a new area, then the customer comes back and say, well, about process guarantees. You know, well, if you say that I'm going to save this much and I'm going to pay this much, annualized, how much am I going to save? We say, well, this much, and they say, well, put some skin in the game, right, to make sure that you are going to deliver. And that we're working on now. We're not fair, but I think an as-a-service model for some of these solutions is going to put, us skin in the game from us and put more trust by the customers to sign up for these things. In my opinion, we're not there, but we're working on those models in several countries.
Yeah, I comment on legislation. As I said, I've been involved a lot with eco-design, and for small pumps, circulators up to 2.5 kilowatt, we saw this. We knew the first cost was higher. We knew also the payback time was lower. So why wasn't it implemented 2 years payback time? Is okay, but it didn't catch up. Then with labeling, which we ran in Europe, we could raise it from 20 to 50%, and then it stopped because there was a big difference. Maybe in UK there was 5%, Denmark 90%, Germany 50%. But with the Eco-Design Directive, yeah, it's law. You cannot place it on the market, and that's all the problem. And you went to 100% in 13. And that is the same. We are now, as I said, hoping will happen with the bigger pumps in buildings. And that means that, yeah, you're not allowed to place it on the market unless you have a complete unit with VSD and controls on. And that is quite controversial because it's not controlled by EPBD. EPBD can something, but we have not seen it. It actually doesn't do. We can see on the sales it doesn't do what it should do. But eco-design is quite effective, and in that way, we will actually push that on the market. And people say, but how can you do that? Irrespective of application, this type of pump has to have a VFD on. But that's what seems to go to happen. That is the draft legislation at the moment.
So thank you for that. So, I mean, I think at the policy point, I mean, I've worked with policy for 15 years, so I'm well aware that change is slow. But I'm a little bit frustrated that, you know, we're standing here, we're talking about these solutions, right? They're not new, they're tried and tested, they work. Payback time is short. You've got all sorts of innovative solutions here in terms of how to finance, how to bring out like your internal knowledge externally. And still we're saying the market doesn't really take off. We don't really have what we need for this to really sort of go at the speed we would like it to. I mean, what is like the one thing in legislative terms, for instance, that you think would really make a difference for you? Yeah, and I think Thomas first. And
yeah,
then,
I will say that financing, I think, is its major part. We say the technologies are there. We say the return on investment is there. So the legislation is largely supporting, etc. I also look inside our own four walls of us as a company. So I give you an example. So in my region, there is 2,500 salespeople that are selling our solutions. Yeah, and we've tried. You know, we have trained them. We have used the carrot with the extra incentives. We have used the sticks by following up. You know, every leads generating that are coming from and these type of solutions versus the more common technologies, etc. And it just takes time. We need to do a better job as a company ourselves to make sure that we actually engage you and the customers with on the right levels, with the right value proposition, with the right understanding. And transforming a sales force like that takes some time, and that's been our challenge, and that's upon us. We need to work faster. I just want to say that on the industry itself.
Yeah, so I think Henning wanted to come in this, and then Stefan.
Yeah, I agree to what has been said, but I think we're missing the part that we are all consumers, and if we request products and solutions that are the best available, then that will also push the market. So we do not need to wait for legal requirements for these. If we all ask and require the best possible products, and then also think about having the short payback time, then this will definitely drive up the speed. I guess all of us, when we're buying a new fridge, this is relatively simple. We're not only looking at the cost, but we're looking at the running cost also. So, and we have a younger generation that are growing up now, and they will not forgive us if we have not done whatever we can. So I don't think we have to wait for legal requirements and all this. We can all require products and buildings that, so we don't want to rent the building if it's not up to a certain standard and all these things. I think that will speed up.
Yeah. So you're saying vote with your feet to some extent. Make sure that you yourself drive the market by buying the most efficient products.
Yeah, I just would like to rebound on what you said, Thomas, because we have a massive problem, and that's a massive problem to decarbonize with the speed that we have to do that 55% down by 2030. And we say we have solutions that are affordable, quick return on investment, everything's great. Why are we not where we should be, basically? And back to your point, I think what we're missing is we need to address the entire ecosystem here. Because there's one thing to get directives from EU, but when this hits the road here in the countries, in the cities, we need public, we need private partnership, as we discussed, but we need all the stakeholders to be informed. Back to your questions, we need to better educate the designers, the engineers, the one who are going to build, the one who are going to maintain, and so on and so forth. So it's all about the entire ecosystem that we need to address. And we are good at addressing some portion of it, but this is the whole one. And if one is missing, and there was something mentioned this morning, which I think it's absolutely great. If finally, and this is going to happen, we succeed as we want to succeed to decarbonize, to use the technology for that, you know what's going to be the next roadblock? Very clear. It's not going to be financing. There will be tons of financing. It's not going to be supply chain, even if today supply chain may be an issue. I can see some people smiling. It's not going to be that. Exactly. Exactly. Manpower. We're going to miss these green engineers. We're going to miss the one putting the whatever controls we sell into the buildings, designing, operating, maintaining. So if we don't address this, and it does not count only for controls, this is for energy generation, this is for everything, we're going to miss the boat big time. And this is a massive issue. My belief, that's not technology. That's people. And this, we're going to lack people big time if we don't address that properly.
I think that's always the case, certainly, already the case, certainly in some member states. Yeah. But fair point. And for sure, there is a lack of trades, but also other people, I think, throughout the system to actually help this green transition on its way. But, I was thinking, somebody said before, we're 5 different companies, so of course we have 5 different operating systems. And as we're standing here today with some of the really big companies within this sort of field who are all doing cool and innovative things one by one, I mean, are we good enough as an industry, overarching now as a building industry, to also actually sit together and exchange these things and make sure that your good example and your good example and yours actually come out so it can be implemented? Because I very much agree with your point that this needs to come from the bottom, right? It needs to come locally. It needs to be pushed out, not just from legislation, but also just from action from companies and from societies. So are we missing some tricks there? What can we take with us, for instance, from these 3 days in Sønderborg, both the conference, but also the fact that we are in a town that actually has managed to put together a very ambitious project involving a lot of different actors, and to many people's point here, integrating their system. Frank?
Yeah, so I mean, as Stefan said earlier, I mean, it's not about technology. We can do it. I mean, we have a way to bridge an ABB cloud solution with a Johnson Controls cloud solution. Technically, it's a little bit complicated because it's not standardized, but we can do it. But the challenge really is, as also Henning said, I mean, the communication. We need to vote with our wallets. We need to, as tenants of a rented building, we need to require that that building has certification, so that the green building certification is there, and that's sort of the guarantee. And then we need to work with the green building certification schemes, and there are many of them, which complicates things, of course, but to make sure that, yes, there are building controls, but not only that there are controls, but that they have certain capabilities of being flexible, using AI to actively adopt the energy usage of the building to the actual use of the building. But one of the other things is the communication part. That's a critical part of it. And what we've done in ABB is we initiated an energy efficiency movement, not just for ABB, but as trying to bring all sorts of companies together. Alfa Laval is part of it, and Advancer in Denmark is a part of it. I mean, we're trying to bring all these companies together to really, first of all, pledge our own energy savings, but also have a common platform where we really promote what can you do and how can you do this in the market with the existing technologies that we have.
Good. So join Frank's energy efficiency movement. We've got 4 minutes left, so that gives you 1 each. So I'm just going to go down the row.
Yeah, I think you have a point, Julia. We can do better in communicating and promoting the cases where we have worked together and done things together. So it's a common agenda that we have to this topic. So I mean, bringing out the cases where we have worked together, I think we can do better. So.
Excellent. That's half a promise, right? We'll follow up on that.
Yes, as I said, I'm not so concerned about communication. You can have gateways if that's an issue, but it is going in the direction also with building information modeling that a pump is standardized. So when you make your energy modeling of your building, there is a standard for what is a pump, independent on the brand. So that is also a base to be able to model the building in the right way, and that requires that, for example, building information modeling is enhanced, and that is the trend we're seeing, and standardization in that direction.
I just would like to change a bit topic, because I believe we cannot close this session if we don't say a few words about digital. We started to speak about digital. This is a huge buzzword. I can see some of you smiling, and then this can be things super complex or super easy. Just 3 examples.
We'll take the easy one, please.
3 easy ones.
Yeah.
Thank you, Julie. One, it is digitally, we can build digital twins of a building without almost changing anything in a building. We go there, we sell a kind of software solution, and we impact the energy consumption of a building by 20 to 25%. This can be put in place in 3 months. You don't change anything in your buildings. We modelize the building, we look at the weather forecast, we do dynamic adjustment. So that's one solution, easy to use, can hit your bill before the end of the year. That's point number 1. Point number 2, services, digital services. Back to what Frank said. Here we can provide digitally a lot of services in commercial building, data centers, but even more supermarkets, to understand what is drifting in a given envelope, back to your point, and then adjust this manually or with some artificial intelligence. Easy, that's available, there's a lot of solutions out there, and then Danfoss as an example, we do have a lot of operations running with these services. And then the last element, which is super key, if we don't make our products, all of us, easier to use, we're not going to win that battle. Because controls can be, from time to time, I can see some of you guys saying yes, can be a little bit hard. And here, digitalization, my opinion, is absolutely key. And what we do, as an example, we do have some of our solutions for district energy. When you sell a station, the value, the efficiency of the station, it is depending on the way you commission the stations. And I believe for your products, this is more or less the same. If you don't do a proper commissioning, you don't get the energy efficiency. Digitally, we can do this automatically for the contractors. So that's 3 basic examples of what means digital solutions in a practical way, which works, which delivers, and with a short return on investment.
These are really excellent examples, so thank you so much for bringing them to the table. And by the way, I think in your final point there, whenever the Commission talks about sort of citizen-centered energy, I always get a little bit nervous because, to your point, we can do so much in optimizing the systems if we just leave them alone to operate based on their data, right? So it's all good and well that there is human involvement, but sometimes it's not for the best. Final speaker.
All right, very, very quickly. I'm an introvert Swede, so this is going to be over in a second. No, joke aside, thank you for coming. It's been interesting. 45 minutes went too fast, I think. I think it's been clear it needs every one of us to contribute here. I mean, I just want to say I think the industry is also very prepared. We are prepared to put our stake in the game with financing models to be developed quicker, better value proposition, and better training for our people to be able to kind of articulate what the usage and the benefits could be. Thank you.
Excellent. So thank you so much to the whole panel, and thank you for you in the audience. We've heard a lot of good solutions. We've also heard that there are some challenges ahead. But frankly, I mean, with the products we've got, the technology, and all the different things you're working on, we should be able to take on this pretty quickly. And as I said, my background is that I come from a sort of a coalition of 50 different organizations, companies, trade associations, alliances, NGOs working together on this topic. So for me, really, this sort of element of working together, of making sure that all the good case studies, all the good ideas, all the good learnings you have are shared is so valuable, both for the industry, but also for those out there, policymakers at all levels, who actually sit there now with a very tangible exercise, because we haven't talked so much about policy, but at the end of the day, we've actually committed to decarbonising the EU building stock by 2050, right? And we know that to meet the Paris Agreement, buildings are central. So, we're talking about companies here that would like to make more sales, but at the end of the day, the political commitment has been done. We need to deliver on that, and to deliver on that, the things we've discussed today are going to be absolutely crucial. So it's not just for the for the margins of industry, but also for our globe overall, that we need to get on with this and do it quickly. So thank you so much. Let's give the panelists a round of applause. So there's a short break now, and then we've got a second session also on buildings in here. And then afterwards, you have the chance to go on some site visits, and there's one as well on buildings, going to a new build, and then also a school where actually they're training some of the plumbers and carpenters of the future. Yes, there's a question here. PTEX is not here. I'm not quite sure which room it is. Frederick? But the second building session is also in here, but first there's coffee. So thank you.